My wife slept with our lawyer during the divorce, and now he's claiming ownership of our $500, $0 house. And I just found out she mentally manipulated both of us into signing over everything while I was abroad. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, living through a nightmare I never saw coming. It all started with a gut feeling that something was off, but I didn't want to believe it until I stumbled across the truth in the most shocking way possible. I was abroad on a business trip, trying to focus on work, when I started noticing strange things at home that didn't add up. Little things at first. My wife, Lisa, acting more defensive than usual, avoiding my calls, and suddenly she was always busy when I tried to talk to her. I thought maybe she was stressed or overwhelmed, especially since she's always been a little bitchy about my traveling. But then I found the messages. I was checking her phone because she kept lying about where she was and what she was doing, and I saw texts that made my blood run cold. They weren't just flirty or innocent, they were downright explicit. She was sleeping with our lawyer, Jake. That bastard. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I knew they had a close working relationship, but I never imagined it would turn into this. It was late at night and I'd gotten into her email by accident. She was careless, leaving her laptop open, and there it was, a series of messages and pictures. They'd been sneaking around for months, and she'd even lied about her meetings, claiming she was working late at the office when she was actually with him. At first, I was stunned. My mind refused to accept it. I kept telling myself it was a mistake, maybe some kind of misunderstanding. But then I saw the photos, them in bed, looking like they owned the damn world. I felt my stomach twist. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, right under my nose? I had trusted her for years, and now I was looking at the proof that she'd been lying, manipulating, and cheating on me while I was away trying to provide for us. I was furious, but also hurt. It's one thing to suspect, it's another to see it with your own eyes. I didn't even know what to feel first: anger, heartbreak, betrayal. I wanted to scream, to yell at her, to demand answers, but I knew that wouldn't help. I had to keep my composure, even if inside I was boiling over. The thing that made it worse was the way she lied about everything afterward. Said I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was crazy for even thinking she'd cheat. She looked me straight in the eye and called me insecure, said I was overreacting, that she loved me and wouldn't do something so stupid. But I knew better. I knew she was lying. And I knew that her lies weren't just about her affair, they were about everything. How she'd managed to manipulate me into signing over our house, our savings, everything, while I was away. She had this way of twisting words, making me doubt myself, making me feel guilty for questioning her. She's good at lying, really good. She's always been bitchy and manipulative, but this was on a whole new level. And I didn't know what to do next. All I knew was that my world had been shattered and nothing would be the same again. After I saw those messages, everything changed in an instant. My mind was racing, trying to process how I had been so blind. I sat there, staring at her phone, feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was the realization that she'd been lying to me for months, probably longer. She'd always been bitchy, yes, but I never thought she'd be capable of something this cruel. The worst part, she managed to manipulate me into signing over our house while I was abroad, completely unaware that she was screwing around with Jake, our lawyer. I remember how her voice sounded when I confronted her that night. I called her from my hotel room, my hands trembling. I told her I knew everything, and her reaction was nothing short of infuriating. She started to cry, fake tears I could tell, and spun some bullshit about how I was overreacting, that it was just a mistake, that she loved me and it was a one-time thing. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was never around, that I was working too much, that she was lonely. She called me selfish and accused me of not caring about her feelings. But her words didn't matter, her actions did. And her actions proved she'd been lying right to my face. I was furious, but I also felt this crushing sadness. the kind that makes your stomach sink and your chest tighten. I kept thinking about the house, our house. It's worth $500,000, and I'd signed everything away without even realizing it. She had somehow convinced me to sign the papers while I was away, claiming it was for our future, that we needed to move on from the past. But now I see she'd been planning this all along. She'd been plotting to take everything, and I was too blind, too trusting to see it coming. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal. I started to question every moment in our marriage. How long? Had she been cheating? How did she manage to turn me into the villain while she played the innocent victim? I felt so stupid, so naive. I thought I knew her, but I was dead wrong. The more I thought about it, the more I realized she'd been controlling the narrative, twisting things so I doubt my own judgment. She'd always been bitchy, yes, but I never thought she'd be capable of this level of deceit. In the days that followed, I started digging. I hired a private investigator just to find out how deep this went. Turns out, she's been sneaking around with Jake for months, even before the divorce proceedings started. She played me like a fiddle and I was the puppet. I found out she also been feeding him information about our finances, how much I earned, the value of our assets, everything. No wonder he felt entitled to claim our house. She'd mentally manipulated both of us into signing over everything, all while I was abroad, oblivious to her schemes. It's like I was living in a nightmare. I kept asking myself, how did I not see this coming? How could I have been so blind? I was furious, but I was also devastated. She's always been a bitchy woman, sharp-tongued and manipulative, but I never thought she'd stoop this low. The worst part, she's still lying, still trying to spin her way out of it. I confronted her again and she just doubled down, claiming she was the victim, that I'm overreacting, that I should just forgive her because she loves me. Yeah, right, that's what they all say. But I knew better now. I saw her for what she was, a liar, a cheater, a manipulator. I had to make a decision. Do I fight for what's left of my marriage, or do I cut my losses and walk away? I knew I couldn't stay with someone who'd betray me like this, who'd lie and cheat and steal from me behind my back. I started planning my next move, figuring out how to get my name back on the house, how to protect what's mine. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without a fight. And I knew this was just the beginning. Things were about to get a lot messier before they got better. Once I had the evidence and the initial shock wore off, I realized I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. I had been played, manipulated into signing over our house, and now she was trying to deny everything, claiming I was paranoid or jealous. That bitch. I knew I had to act fast if I wanted to salvage what was left of my life, or at least get some justice. The first thing I did was get a lawyer, someone who knew the ins and outs of divorce law, especially with assets involved. I needed to understand how she pulled this off, how she managed to turn me into the villain even when I was abroad trying to do right by us. My lawyer, Mark, was a no-nonsense guy, and he immediately saw the holes in her story. Apparently, she'd been very clever. She manipulated the paperwork, forged signatures, and even had Jake, our lawyer, help with the legal side of things. I found out she'd hired him months before, and he was complicit in her scheme. It's sickening to think she'd used her knowledge of law and my trust in him to screw me over. She convinced him to draft the papers, and she'd forged my signature while I was overseas. I was furious. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? I trusted her with everything, my life, my money, my future, and she turned around and used that trust to steal from me. With my lawyer's help, I started to piece together the full extent of her deception. We found bank records, emails, and even recorded conversations where she'd lied about her whereabouts and her intentions. She told me she was working late, that she was stressed, that she needed space. Meanwhile, she was sleeping with Jake and plotting how to drain our assets. I felt like I'd been a fool, but I was also angry enough to tear the whole thing down if I had to. I wanted my house back. I wanted her to pay for her lies, and I wanted to make sure Jake didn't get away with this. One of the most shocking things I uncovered was her mental manipulation. She'd always been bitchy and sharp-tongued, but she'd also been incredibly calculating. She'd gaslighted both of us, me into signing over the house and Jake into thinking he was doing the right thing. She'd twisted facts, lied convincingly, and played the victim when it suited her. It was like she had a script, and she knew exactly which buttons to push to get what she wanted. I realized she'd been controlling the entire situation, turning our marriage into a game she always knew she'd win. That realization hit me hard. I also discovered that she'd been feeding Jake information about our finances, our assets, even our savings. She told him about the house, how much it was worth, and how much I earned. No wonder he felt entitled to claim ownership. She'd set the whole thing up to give herself an advantage. Meanwhile, I was abroad, clueless, thinking everything was fine. It's sickening to think she'd planned this so meticulously. She's always been bitchy, yes, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. It was cold, calculated, and designed to destroy me. Now I was in a race against time. I had to fight to get my house back, to prove her lies, and to stop Jake from taking everything I'd worked for. I started gathering evidence, more emails, recordings, witnesses who saw her sneaking around. I also contacted a forensic accountant to track her financial moves. It was like peeling back layers of a rotten onion. Every step I took revealed more betrayal, more lies. The house was supposed to be our future, and now it was being stolen from me piece by piece. I couldn't let that happen. I had to fight, harder than I ever thought I could, and I was determined to win, no matter how dirty things got. The more I dug into her schemes, the angrier I got. Every new piece of evidence made it clear she'd been planning this for a long time. She played the innocent wife, the victim, all while secretly orchestrating her escape with Jake's help. It was like she had a script, and she knew exactly how to twist it in her favor. I started to see how she manipulated everyone around her, me, Jake, even her own family. It was her way of controlling the narrative, and she was damn good at it. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. One night I confronted her again, this time face to face. I told her I knew everything. The affair, the forged signatures, the financial manipulation. Her reaction was predictable. She everything called me paranoid, said I was overreacting, that I was just jealous. She threw in some classic lines about how she loved me and that I was the one who was crazy for doubting her, but I'd had enough. I told her I had all the proof, that I was going to fight for my house, my money, and my reputation. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk, trying to act innocent, but I saw right through her. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I trusted her for years, and now I saw her for what she really was, someone who'd lie, cheat, and manipulate just to get what she wanted. It was like I'd been living with a stranger, a woman who had no morals, no loyalty. I kept thinking about how she had mentally manipulated both of us into signing away everything. She'd been so convincing, so coldly calculating. It made me question everything about our marriage. Was it ever real? Or was I just a mark in her game? I also started to feel this deep sadness, like I'd lost the person I thought I knew. She was bitchy, sure, but I never thought she'd betray me. Like this. I always thought she loved me, but now I could see she'd been using me from the start. The house, the money, even her own feelings, all just tools for her to get what she wanted. I realized that I had to take control of the situation if I wanted to get my life back. I couldn't let her keep lying and manipulating her way out of this. I had to fight for what was mine. The next step was clear. I had to legally challenge everything. I hired a team of attorneys who specialized in property fraud and financial deception. We filed an injunction to stop her from transferring or selling the house. We also started the process to have the signatures on the paperwork invalidated because they were forged and I had proof. It was a long, exhausting process, but I was determined. I knew I wasn't just fighting for the house. I was fighting for my dignity, my sanity, and the truth. Meanwhile, she kept up her lies, trying to spin her version of events to anyone who would listen. She told her friends I was crazy, that I was just jealous, that I was the one cheating and lying. She even tried to turn her family against me, saying I was paranoid and insecure, but I didn't care. I had the evidence, I had the law on my side, and I was ready to see this through. I couldn't let her get away with stealing my future, not without a fight. And I was just getting started. The legal battle dragged on longer than I expected, but I was relentless. Every day was of frustration and anger. I had to deal with her constant lies, her bitchy attitude, and her attempts to manipulate the system in her favor. But I also had a secret weapon: hard proof. Every forged signature, every manipulated document, every lie she told was recorded and documented. My lawyer warned me that she was a master manipulator, that she'd try everything to keep what she stole, but I was prepared. One day, I got a call from my lawyer with some shocking news. The court had issued an injunction, temporarily freezing all assets related to the house. I felt a flicker of hope. This meant I could buy myself some time and really build a case. I also learned that her attempts to sell or transfer the property illegally were going to be blocked, but I knew this was only the beginning. She'd fight back hard, and I had to stay one step ahead. In the meantime, I started to piece together her entire scheme. I found out that she'd been feeding Jake information about our finances, that she'd even convinced him to help her forge signatures. It was sickening, really. She used her knowledge of the law against me, turning her own legal advisor into an accomplice. And she'd done all this while pretending to be the loving, devoted wife. Her bitchy, manipulative side was terrifying. She'd lie, cheat, and twist everything to her advantage. I couldn't believe I'd been married to someone like that. The emotional toll was immense. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and exhausted. Every day brought new surprises, more lies uncovered, more evidence collected. I started to realize how deep her deception ran. She'd been planning this for months, maybe even longer, and I'd been too blind to see it. The worst part was knowing she'd been lying to my face all along, making me doubt myself, convincing me I was the problem when she was the one cheating and stealing. It made me question everything about our marriage, about who she really was, but I refused to give up. I knew I had to keep fighting, not just for the house, but for my own sanity. I couldn't let her win. I started talking to other professionals, financial investigators, forensic accountants, to help me build a case that would hold up in court. I also prepared myself emotionally, knowing that whatever the outcome, I'd have to accept it and move forward. I was tired of the lies, the manipulation, and the betrayal. I wanted out, but I wanted justice even more. Looking back, I realized that this whole ordeal has changed me forever. I trusted her blindly, and she used that trust against me. But I also learned how strong I can be when pushed to the edge. I'm not going to let someone like her destroy me. I'll fight for what's mine, for my dignity, and for my future. No matter how bitchy she gets, no matter how manipulative she tries to be, I see through her now. And I know the truth will come out. The only thing left is to see how it all ends. After months of legal battles, evidence gathering, and emotional exhaustion, the final showdown arrived. The courtroom was tense, filled with the silent anticipation of what was to come. I sat there, my heart pounding, knowing I had fought tooth and nail to clear my name and reclaim what was rightfully mine. Her lies had been exposed, her manipulation, her forged signatures, her elaborate scheme to steal my house. The judge looked over the evidence, listened to the testimonies, and finally made a ruling that changed everything. The court declared that the signatures on the property transfer documents were indeed forged, that she had manipulated both me and Jake into signing away our assets under false pretenses. The house was awarded back to me, and her attempt to claim ownership was invalidated. Jake was disbarred from practicing law in that jurisdiction for his part in aiding her deception, and she faced charges of fraud and financial manipulation. It was a hard-won victory, but it felt like a small relief after all the pain and betrayal. In the aftermath, I moved out of the house she had tried to steal from me. I didn't want to stay in a place that held so many toxic memories. I started rebuilding my life piece by piece. I learned a lot from this ordeal about trust, manipulation, and the importance of always protecting myself legally. I also learned that some people are capable of incredible cruelty, and that you can't always see it coming until it's too late. I've become more cautious, more aware, and more determined to never let anyone manipulate me like that again. Looking back, I realize I was lucky to come out of this with my house and my dignity intact. Her bitchy, manipulative nature didn't just ruin our marriage, it almost cost me everything I'd worked for. but I also see it as a lesson, one I won't forget. I've learned that in relationships, trust is vital, but so is vigilance. Never sign anything without understanding every detail and always listen to that gut feeling. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Now I focus on moving forward. I've started fresh, with a clearer sense of who I am and what I deserve. I know I'll be cautious about who I let into my life, and I'll never let anyone manipulate me again. I hope sharing this story helps others recognize the warning signs early: bitchy attitude, lying, secretiveness, and reminds them that they have the strength to fight back. No matter how deep the betrayal runs, you can come out the other side stronger. And sometimes justice really does prevail.